Have you ever walked out of a long presentation feeling like just an absolute genius? You're completely confident you've absorbed every single detail, right? But then, the moment a colleague asks you to explain the main point, you just draw a complete blank. Well, you are definitely not alone. This incredibly frustrating gap between perception and reality, it's known as the illusion of competence.
Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Here is our agenda for today. We're starting with the illusion of competence, then walking through the 4 actionable steps of the Feynman technique. Isolate, teach, identify gaps, and simplify. And we'll wrap up with the science of mastery.
Section 1, the illusion of competence, why we think we know more than we do. I mean, seriously, ask yourself, have you ever felt like a master in the moment, but couldn't back it up later? Here's the thing, repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity easily fools our brains into feeling like we've achieved mastery. But face a blank page, and that familiarity just collapses. This whole confidence-performance mismatch is driven by the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's a psychological bias where we overestimate our abilities simply because we lack the actual expertise to judge ourselves accurately. To put that into perspective, studies show learners consistently predict their test scores will be 15 to 20% higher than they actually get. Crazy, right? So how do we beat this illusion? We turn to the Feynman technique. It's a brilliantly simple framework named after the Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman, who firmly believed that true understanding absolutely demands the ability to simplify. Let's look at the whole 4-step framework all at once right here, just to reduce your cognitive load before we get into the weeds. Section 2. Step 1. Isolate. Picking your target concept. Let's kick off our step-by-step guide with the very first thing you need to do. Step 1 is to isolate the concept. You literally just start by writing down your specific target idea on a blank page. Why? Well, research into goal-directed learning tells us that our brain filters information so much more effectively when it has a crystal clear target. By isolating a single concept, you're forcing your brain to switch gears from just passively browsing to focused, active engagement. It cuts out all the noise. For our explainer today, we're going to use cognitive load theory as our running example. This theory essentially states that cognitive load is the level of mental energy required to process information. Now, what distinguishes an expert from a novice are schemas, basically mental constructs that let experts categorize and solve problems quickly, while novices are stuck guessing with trial and error. We are going to master this exact concept using the Feynman framework today. Section 3. Step 2. Teach. The Golden Retriever Standard. This is where the true test of understanding begins, by forcing you to articulate what you know. Step 2 is to teach it simply. Try explaining the concept out loud or in writing as if you were talking to a complete novice. Honestly, speak as you might to a young child or even a golden retriever. The absolute non-negotiable rule here is plain language. Your goal is to construct a clear, logical narrative from scratch, no hiding behind fancy, complex jargon. Let's see what that looks like with our running example. Just look at the contrast here. You could use a jargon-heavy definition of cognitive load theory and say it facilitates schema acquisition via reduced working memory load. Or you apply our simple golden retriever standard and say it makes learning easier by organizing info so your brain isn't overwhelmed. See the difference? So much clearer. The science that makes this step so incredibly powerful is called retrieval practice. Memories are formed through activity. The actual mental struggle of trying to teach something forces you to pull information from your memory without any helpful cues. That struggle signals to your brain, hey, this content is important. It deepens the encoding and strengthens your neural pathways way better than just passively rereading a textbook. Remember, if the answer comes too easily, your brain isn't working hard enough to make the memory stick. Section 4. Step 3. Identify gaps. Confronting the illusion. Moving on to step 3, we have to act as our own strict teacher and ruthlessly diagnose our weaknesses. You have to review your explanation and ask yourself the hard questions. Where did your explanation break down? Where did you start getting vague or fall back on big academic words or just feel that tiny flicker of doubt? Like, when teaching cognitive load theory, did you stumble when trying to explain what a schema is without using a textbook definition? Those exact friction points, those are your specific learning gaps. They show you exactly where your understanding is fragile. And by identifying these gaps, you're practicing something called metacognition. First introduced by Jean Flavel, metacognition is literally just thinking about your own thinking. You're actively monitoring your comprehension and evaluating your progress. Spotting these gaps forces you to step outside of yourself and accurately judge your own understanding. It completely dismantles that Dunning-Kruger effect we talked about earlier.
Section 5. Step 4. Simplify. Building the final model. This is the final step of the core Feynman technique, where we patch those gaps.
Step 4 is simplify and refine. Let's jump back to our cognitive load theory example. If your gap was understanding how to best present information, you'd go back to the source material. You'd see that a split format, like having text over here and a diagram way over there, forces the brain to look back and forth, creating a really high cognitive load. But if you refine your model to use an integrated format, placing text directly onto the diagram, you eliminate those non-essential details. It's a game changer for reducing mental strain. But wait, to truly master a concept, it's not a one-and-done kind of deal. The spacing effect, which was actually first identified by Hermann Ebbinghaus way back in 1885, shows us that learning is vastly more effective when study sessions are spaced out. By running through these Feynman cycles at increasing intervals, like day 1, day 3, day 10, and day 30, you are literally hardwiring that information deep into your long-term memory. Today, modern spaced repetition tools basically digitize Ebbinghaus's theory. Systems like the Leitner system rely on these exponential forgetting curves to optimize exactly when you should review. They track how easily you recall an idea. If you struggle, boom, the system makes you review it sooner. If you can explain it easily, it pushes the review further out. It perfectly balances learning new concepts while reinforcing the old ones. Section 6. The Science of Mastery. Let's look at the hard data behind the effort. Does all of this work actually pay off?
The short answer is yes. The performance boosts from this framework are massive. A 2025 study on English language learners showed a 28% average increase in test scores. Plus, a broader meta-analysis revealed a 21% improvement in metacognitive skills and a genuinely staggering 34% boost in applied performance. So the hard data absolutely proves this self-teaching framework doesn't just help you remember things, it fundamentally transforms your actual capabilities.
You know, the Roman philosopher Seneca completely nailed this concept 2,000 years ago. He said, "While we teach, we learn." This timeless wisdom is the anchor for the protégé effect. Teaching a concept to someone else, or hey, even just pretending to, is scientifically the single most effective way to learn it yourself. And that brings us to the end of our explainer. But look, I'm not going to let you just walk away feeling like a genius without putting in the work. I want you to confront your own illusion of competence right now. Can you explain the Feynman technique in 60 seconds to a 12-year-old? Go ahead, give it a try.